consciousness as well. So you got love, fear, and emotions and consciousness, and it's like all fits together. Obviously, I just wanted an explanation on it, and it was my own thoughts was to overcome fear would be understanding. So we had more understanding about more things, then it'd be less fear there for us to go into or need to go into. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it's not necessarily how it works.
Right.
So think of fear and love as resonances.
Right.
So in a state of fear, what is the predominant emotion you are feeling? Well, you call it fear, but what is it? How do you know you're scared of something? What is it that you're experiencing? Well, you're usually experiencing constricting energy. There is a perceived threat to your being, isn't there?
Right.
So there's a range of emotion that exists within fear. On the most extreme end of fear, we'll call it the downside, is dread. The fear,
Right.
the threat of non-existence. Dread is fear magnified to such a degree that you think that if you give into it, you won't exist.
Right.
On the lighter end of fear is simply a more of an anxiety, we'd call it. Meaning you don't quite trust that you'll create what you want. The average person, the person in general, when you are conscious of fear, you're in the middle. You're more than anxious, but you're less than dread. And in that space, your choices and your decisions change, don't they?
Right.
As opposed to when you are in a state of love, when you're really resonating and feeling love for yourself, and out of that you feel an appreciation and a love for your world and those in it. And you know that you are loved by God Goddess. In that place, you have happiness on the low end, and then you have ecstasy on the high end. And in the middle, you're feeling much more than happiness, but perhaps less than ecstasy at all times. Now, in that place, do you truly fear a threat of non-existence?
No.
Instead, you are looking forward to co-creating and becoming one with all that is.
Right.
The exact opposite of the other, isn't it?
Yes.
So in one you have union, in the other you have separation and non-existence, meaning you don't, even your cells don't exist anymore. You don't even know who you are. It's as though you never existed. And with that threat comes that sense that, well, what does it matter anyway? If I'm just going to disappear as though I've never been, how can I possibly matter? Whereas when you're in a state of love, you know that you matter. You simply know your very existence matters. And so, which came first? We would suggest it's not a question of time. It's more a question of resonance. And we would say that each and every human being is born into love. You come from love. You come from God Goddess. You come from your soul and your higher self. And that's all right. And that understanding, that awareness is with you on a subconscious and an unconscious level. And when you are born into the physical plane, You experience for the first time in your consciousness, in that physical experience, you experience a separation. And that is how fear is born. Because the physical reality is so different from where you have just come that there is a disparity and there is a threat. Because you don't have the tools yet on a conscious level to choose to return to the oneness. And you also have a mandate. You see, you had a mandate when you came into this lifetime to separate from God Goddess, to take this journey of individuation so that you could return consciously so to become one. And that is why there is fear. There may be more fear than there should be, but it is a function of human consciousness evolution that there's intensity in this particular lifetime. Because you did come in to deal with it. You did come in to choose love, to lessen and mitigate fear. You will always have some fear because you always want to have the choice, you see, because free will is the highest priority. There will always be some that will be free to choose the nightmare or the mediocrity or the dream. You always want to have choice as your highest principle, because with choice, you have your freedom to choose intact. Without the freedom, then it's really, you can't achieve the same level of love. You have love without the freedom, but you don't get to generate it in the same way, at the same level. And human consciousness is evolving love itself. Just as you are diminishing the need for fear, you are increasing the ability and the experience that you call love. That has to do with becoming one, and at the same time maintaining your sense of value, your understanding of your participation, your individuality, which is a function of free will and choice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And so, to increase the love, what we're talking about is the co-creation with the goddess.
Yes.
And that would in fact make everybody grow in that sense.
That is true. And remember that the key component to being a co-creator is that necessary step of individuating and using conscious choice.
Right.
And conscious choice is a function of free will.
May I add something?
Certainly so.
Something that always stood out to me about what Lazara said about love was that you have to pick love up and carry it. It's not a default.
Yes, and when you are in a state of fear, you don't just happen upon love, do you? You actually have to choose to set down the fear. You have to take some action to lessen the fear so that you can make a new choice and then to choose the love to step into. Sometimes just the process of remembering the love, that phrase that Lazarus gave you and Katrina in your marriage ceremony, to remember the love, that phrase, that action, the remembering, oh, someone does love me, I am worth loving, even if I don't believe it myself. I have experiences of love. I have experiences of unconditional love, where nothing is required of me. And just remembering that mitigates the fear, doesn't it? And then it sets you on the right path to generate something new. That's a form of picking up love, isn't it?
Wow.
By remembering that it exists. Even if you can't emotionally connect to it fully, it doesn't matter. What's important is that you make the effort to question, wait a minute, when I'm scared, that means I've dropped the ball. That means I've separated from what could be. I've denied the love. And sometimes it's a process, because if you think someone's doing it to you, first you have to move through that, oh, wait a minute, I think I'm a victim of reality. But wait a minute, I'm a map maker magician. I'm a conscious co-creator of realities. I am creating my own reality. But right now I think I'm a victim. I have to set that down first. And you have many tools to use to shift from feeling like a victim to just going through the mental exercise of remembering that you're a reality creator, don't you? And as you do that, sometimes just using the analytical process detaches you enough from the emotion that you can then generate something new.
So with point of understanding then, when you understand all what you just said, then you know what to do, so the fear is not there as such.
Yes. Because fear is a resonance, and as you treat it as one, saying, well, if I'm in fear, I'm in a state of fear, then everything around me is going to remind me that there's something to be fearful of, because it's a resonant match.
Right.
If I don't like what my world is showing me, then pull the energy back into you and choose something new. I want to experience a different resonance than fear.
Oh, and that would be a different emotion as well, obviously.
It will generate new emotions, yes. You can use emotion to catapult you. You can also use emotion to keep you fixed. So, for instance, if you have a persistent emotion, let's say self-doubt. It doesn't sound like a very intense emotion, and yet self-doubt is a combination of many things, one of which is judgment, meaning you may be in fear and you can't get out of fear because you doubt yourself. You've judged yourself about something that happened, and now you feel powerless to change your reality. But all of that is just all in your mind, isn't it? Meaning it's emotional, but it's combined with certain thoughts. And it's actually the thoughts that have fixed you in place. Judgments, as Lazar says, put a lid on emotion. They compress them and keep you from releasing them. So as you realize, wait a minute, okay, this is the same old story I've always told myself. I don't believe I'm going to succeed. I think I'm a failure, blah, blah, blah. We say blah, blah, blah because it's the same old story every time, isn't it? There's nothing new in the information. It's the same old voice. It might be a father's voice or a mother's voice. It might be your own voice, the own critical parent within you, punishing you for not doing it right one more time. And we are focusing on this because this is front and center for John right now. But each of you have your own version of it, and so you can benefit from unraveling it. And so the first step is to say, wait a minute, this is a script. in this resonance that I'm in right now, I don't feel like I create my own reality. And I feel like I never will. There's this hopelessness that comes with it. It's a vicious circle. It starts with a bit of self-doubt. And then it gets magnified. And it becomes more and more negative the longer you sit in it. And then it becomes believable. You start thinking, well, I can't do anything right. I might as well not even try. Or, it's better if I don't do anything, because if I do it, then for sure I'll fail. And then that compounds into feeling as though I'm not really a map maker magician, am I? I've just been deluding myself. And then you become depressed. And then you become angry at God Goddess for lying to you all these years. So you see, it really becomes quite dramatic. When you just end up on the after the whole internal process, if you end up at the, well, it's all God Goddess's fault for lying to me all this time, and what a crock of shit this really is. When you see it that way, you can laugh about it, because you realize, wow, this has become really dramatic, like a TV show. This would make a very good movie script, because there's lots of drama in it. But of course, externally, you don't show any of that. This is all happening internally. But as a result, what's the impact? What's the outcome? Well, the outcome is that I don't step up. I don't choose. I don't choose what's next for me. That's the outcome. Well, what aspect of self doesn't want you to ever choose anything new?
The ego.
Well, that is part of the negative ego. But where does the negative ego come from?
Ourselves.
Yes, the ego becomes negative because you ask it to do work that it's not supposed to do. You're asking it to interpret reality, when it is only supposed to bring you information. Actually, the part that doesn't want to take any action is the lesser self. The part that never wants to fail. The part that asks the ego not only to bring information, but interpret it too. And this is not new information, but it is very difficult to remember it when you're in the midst of the process. When you're busy punishing yourself, beating yourself up, degrading yourself, despairing, hopeless, deciding, well, I don't matter and I should just kill myself. Now, of course, this is all very dramatic, but it's not too different than what happens, is it? At the end of the day, you wonder, why the hell am I here? What good am I doing? Wouldn't I just do Earth a favor by removing myself from the equation?
I'm a loser, baby, so why don't you shoot me?
Exactly. Yes, and that is the lesser self. That is the strategy of the lesser self. If I make myself insignificant enough, I can just take myself out of the equation and the world will be a better place. The only problem with that is you are creating reality. Even that version of it, you are the creator. So it's a lie in that you can't take yourself out. You cannot take your true self out. The lie tells you you can take yourself out of it. The truth of the matter is your true self is always ready and willing to create something new. Your true self has that goal of growth, of growing in this lifetime, in all lifetimes. Your higher self has that same goal. Your soul has that same goal. God, Goddess has that same goal. That is the unifying element within each and every one of you. That at the end of the day, if you allow yourself to feel that urge to grow, if you allow it to awaken in you in the midst of all the negativity, it opens you up in a new way because it is your direct link. It is that linking energy that you feel is so elusive. But this is the trigger. The linking energy links you to your higher self, to your soul, to God, Goddess, all that is. That urge to grow. And as we say it, you recognize it, don't you? When have you changed your life? Well, I suddenly had this urge to do something different. I just had to do this thing. Maybe I had to go attend a workshop. Maybe I had to meet some person. Maybe I had to go try something new that I'd never done before. Each and every time when you look to see what were the pivotal moments in your life, when you met your significant other, when you left home, when you left your parents for the first time, truly so, where you really became free to be yourself. It was based on an urge, wasn't it? Something deep within you that you don't know how to access normally. It just seems to show up every once in a while. And your quest for each of you has been, how can I hone that? How can I claim that so that I can harness the energy that is there? And so we want you to, for the next solstice period, this next 3 months, we want you to be looking at opening more to that urge to grow, accepting it as your true nature, that at the end of the day, that is my priority. That doesn't mean I have to do anything specific. I don't know how it's going to show up in my reality. That's one of the mysterious things about it. I don't really know when it's going to show up, but I want to do it more consciously. I want to hone that skill. Because what it truly does is connect me with my true nature. It creates a deeper, spontaneous connection with higher self, soul, and God, Goddess. And isn't that why I'm ultimately here?
Wow.
To make that map. And so even as we've been talking, we've been clearing out those old patterns with your higher self, your soul, and God, Goddess's assistance to align you with that urge to grow. Because in that moment, in that beautiful connecting moment that occurs as something within your body oftentimes. It's like a visceral thing. It's almost as though a switch gets turned on, and in that moment you choose something new that you never chose before, and then things happen. And you can only measure the effects of the change. Well, it was, if I look back, it was that moment. That's how I made this decision all of a sudden, and then we met, and then it was happily ever after, or whatever. Each of you have your stories of when it happened, or like John, in your case, when you were 14, there was this switch that went on, and suddenly you knew everything. And you've been trying to get back ever since. Well, we are giving you the key. It's about giving permission Give your higher self permission to create that urge, that knowing, that mystery, opening to the mystery. And it does require letting go of control. That urge to grow means you defy fear. You defy control. You know that phrase, let God. Well, you like to say let Goddess because of your affinity for the feminine and the balance of the masculine and feminine and all of that. You are happy to give Goddess some free reign in this lifetime. But it's really God, Goddess. There is no separation. There is no chauvinism. In reality, there's only harmonious co-creation. And as you allow yourselves to open to trusting that when you honor that urge to grow, it creates wonderful, magical, beautiful outcomes. And we want you to be aware in these next 3 months of what occurs, because we have activated it within you. You cannot not pay attention to it because we have asked you to do so, and now you are actively looking for it. It has moved from your unconscious mind into your conscious mind. This distinction called, I have an urge to grow. It is part of what connects me with my higher self, my soul, and God, Goddess. And that's what I want more of.